She woke up earlier than the alarm clock. It was still dark outside. On the windowsill stood a cup of yesterday's tea, the cold taste of mint. The room was quiet. Only the battery clicked metal from time to time. She lay there for another minute, pressed her palm to her stomach and stood up. The light in the kitchen hurt her eyes. She put down the kettle, found a clean mug, wiped the table. The movements were automatic. The phone made a short sound. The message, "How are you?" from him. She stared at the screen for a long time, as if there was something else there, not this short, "How are you?" Then she turned off the sound and put the phone under the towel. Her husband was still sleeping. His face was calm. He smelled of soap and fatigue. He turned over on his side, sighed in his sleep. She stood in the doorway and thought, I did worse than I could have imagined. And at the same time, I didn't know how else to do it. The kettle whistled. She made tea. She added a spoonful of honey, although she didn't like honey. She just wanted something warm. She sat down at the table and felt her shoulder blades contracting from the tension. There was an empty noise in her head, like a TV on mute. She had come back late yesterday. The apartment smelled of cold and washing powder. He was waiting in the living room. He didn't ask where she had been. He only said, "Are you going to eat?" She nodded. They ate the soup. They were silent. Then he said, "I can't do this anymore. We need to talk." She nodded too, but she didn't speak. Morning cut through the night neatly, like a knife. She dented the edge of the tablecloth with her fingers, as if that might calm the alarm. The phone winked again. The second message. "You're not answering. I'm worried." She exhaled and typed, "I'm at home. Please don't text." Send. The 3 dots didn't appear. He fell silent. The man woke up at 7. He came into the kitchen in a t-shirt and sweatpants. He looked at her quickly, as if it hurt to look at her for a long time. He sat down. She poured him coffee. He took the cup, thanked her without looking. "Shall we talk?" he asked. "Shall we?" she said. They hadn't been able to talk about the main things. For years. They had been able to agree on utilities, shopping, windows that needed washing, holidays, who was going to visit their parents for the weekend. But not about them. "Yesterday he began and stopped. "Were you with him?" She clenched her fingers into fists and unclenched them. "Yes," she said. The chair creaked. He didn't raise his voice. He just pushed the cup away and put his hand on the table, as if looking for support. "Is this once?" he asked. "No," she said, "more than once." He lowered his eyes. She saw his eyelashes. They trembled as if from the wind. He spoke slowly, as if each word dragged a skein of thread behind it. "Why?" he asked. She didn't prepare an answer. She searched for it for a long time, but she didn't find one ready. So she said simply, "Because I've felt invisible for a long time." He smiled a little, bitterly. "I haven't seen you?" he said. "Seriously?" "You've seen everything except me," she said. "You've seen deadlines, repairs, catalogs, forecasts, sports, exchange rates. You saw me as a function, so that there would be food, so that there would be silence, so that there would be someone to lean on. But I didn't recognize me, as a person, in your eyes." He pursed his lips. He looked away. "That's not an excuse," he said. "That's not an excuse," she agreed. "That's a reason. And I don't have the right to have reasons either, I know, but they do exist." The silence stretched. A garbage truck drove past the window. One of the neighbors was banging on the door. The tea had cooled. "Who is he?" he asked. She said the name. Short. Ordinary. Not cinematic. A name that could belong to anyone in their city. Where did you meet? At work, she said. It's funny. At first we argued about deadlines. He's sharp. So am I. Then we started drinking coffee together because we only have one coffee machine and it's a queue. Then he walked me to the tram because it was dark. At some point, I stopped thinking it was friendly. How long? He asked. About 3 months. He scratched his forehead. He pushed the cup even further away. You would have told me right away. I would. He didn't finish. I don't know what I would have. She looked at him straight on. You would have pretended it wasn't serious. You would have said, we'll get through it. You're always like that, and I'm always like that. We were worried. And they lost themselves somewhere between, it's okay, and just tired. He looked up at her. There was anger in them, but not for show, the kind that burns inside. He didn't throw the cup. He didn't slam his fist on the table. He just said, I want to know if this is the end. She didn't answer right away. Her thoughts were like things in a room after moving, boxes without labels, everything mixed up. I don't know, she said. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking to stay. I'm not asking you to punish me. I don't know. He nodded. There was something broken and sober in his nod. Okay, he said. Then yes, we won't pretend. We'll tell our parents we need time. We'll go away for a month. You to your sister, I to your brother, or to a rented room. I don't want scandals. I want a head that doesn't crack. She listened and thought, this is him, my husband. Constructive, precise, cold, under pressure. And I used to love him for that. And now I can't stand it. Okay, she said. They agreed on living together, quickly and without any fuss. Who takes things away? Who leaves the keys? What about the cat? They decided to leave the cat in the apartment. He promised to come and feed her. She said to come on weekends. When he went to work, she packed her bag. Jeans, t-shirts, exercise equipment, makeup bag, documents. She sat on the edge of the bed. She wrote to her sister, Can I spend the night at your place for a week or two? Her sister replied quickly, Come, I'm at home. There are dumplings. She smiled. It hurt. She thought about her mother. She didn't have anything to do with her yet. She asks a lot and cries, maybe a little later. When she was leaving, the cat sat in the doorway and looked up. She sat down, stroked it, felt its warm body and pulse. There was nothing in the cat's eyes that could judge. Only habit. She stroked it again and left. The road to her sister's was short. The city smelled of wet leaves. The tram creaked on the bends. People looked at their phones. She looked too, although she wasn't reading anything. She just held it in her hands because it was easier that way. Her sister opened the door in an old dressing gown with strawberries. She hugged her so tightly that her shoulders crunched. No questions, said her sister. First tea, then we'll think. They sat down in the kitchen. The windows were steamed up from a pot of boiling water. There were children's magnets on the refrigerator. Her sister said simply, You'll be with me, as long as you need. Our room is free. I'll tell my nephew not to make any noise at night. She nodded. For the first time in the morning, she felt like she could breathe more deeply. An hour later, her phone vibrated. A message from him, the one from work. Where are you? She looked at these 2 words and didn't know what to do with them. She wrote, At my sister's. I need time. He replied, I'm waiting. I won't press. She hung up the phone and felt her stomach twist. Not from happiness, from responsibility stretching in different directions. In the evening, her husband wrote, "I'm home. The cat is sleeping on your sweater. I put food out for her. The keys are under the mat." She replied, "Okay, thank you." And then, "Did you eat?" He replied, "Yes." Then, "I don't know what to do with this, but thank you for telling the truth." She read this "thank you" for a long time. It cut like glass. The next days were similar to each other. She went to work, was silent in the corridors, wrote letters as usual. He, the lover, waited by the coffee machine, but didn't touch it. They didn't talk much. Only sometimes did their eyes meet between the latte and Americano buttons. She smelled his perfume and took a step back. He noticed and took a step back too. In the evening, she went to her sister's. Her nephew showed her homework, laughed at the memes. Her sister asked briefly, "How are you?" She answered, "I'm holding on." And it was true, but not completely. A week later, her husband suggested they meet and talk. She agreed. They met in their yard, on the bench where they used to sit with ice cream. It was cool. She came in a coat and scarf. He was in a jacket, no gloves, hands in his pockets. "I've been thinking," he said. "A lot. I've been going over everything in my head, our trips, our quarrels, the way you were silent at the table, the way I turned on the TV so I wouldn't hear myself." She listened in silence. "I'm not justifying you," he said. "I'm not forgiving you now, I can't do it. But I see that I also pretended that everything was fine, because it was easier that way, because it was safer that way. I didn't know that this security would eat us up." She said, "I don't want to expect any right words from you. Tell me how it is." "How is it?" He looked straight at her. "It hurts me. I'm ashamed of myself for not noticing. I'm ashamed of you for not asking. And I'm angry with you. Very much so. But I don't want to take revenge. I'd like to understand if we have a chance, if we're both honest." She sighed. "I don't know," she said. "I don't promise. I don't want to promise. I don't believe in promises now. I believe in actions." "Then let's do it," he said. "A month. We go to a psychologist. Together and separately. We don't live together. We don't sleep with other people. You know what I mean?" She felt the cold touch her wrists under her sleeves. "Okay," she said. "A month." They exchanged brief okays. "Okays. I'll write down the contacts." They stood up. They went in different directions. She walked and thought, why did I agree? Because I'm afraid of losing? Because I'm guilty? Because I want something back? Or is it simply because I don't know how to put a period? There was no answer. She didn't tell her lover about their agreement. She just wrote, "I need space." He replied, "I understand." Then he didn't write for several days. Then he sent a photo from the city bridge, a gray morning, an empty road. "It's quiet here," he wrote. She didn't answer. The first session with the psychologist was strange. A small office, a cactus on the windowsill, a warm blanket. The psychologist spoke calmly. "Name the facts. No grades." She named them. Dates, meetings, silence, kisses in the entrance, lies about being late, his "I'm tired," their backs moving apart in bed. Politely, point by point. In the middle, she burst into tears. Not hysteria, but just water dripping from the edges. The psychologist gave her tissues. "What do you want?" the psychologist asked at the end. She said honestly, "I want to have the right not to know, and not drown from it." The husband went to his sessions separately. After the second one, he told her near the pharmacy, "I'm angry, but anger doesn't cancel love, And love doesn't cancel betrayal. Both things exist together, and that's the hardest part. She nodded. I do too, she said. At night at her sister's house, she would lie on her back and listen to the water running through the battery. The phone lay with the screen down. When it blinked, she wouldn't pick it up right away. Sometimes she wouldn't pick it up at all. Sometimes she would open and read old correspondence with her husband, from the days when they still wrote, I miss you. Come soon. She would leaf through it and feel something old tighten in her chest. She would think, how did we get so far apart without even noticing it? On weekends, she would come to visit the cat. The apartment smelled of their washing powder and dust. She would wash pillowcases, dust the shelves, rearrange books. Her hand would reach for where the charger used to be, automatically. She would catch herself in her habits and laugh without laughing. Once he came in while she was there. He brought food. They met in the hallway. He put the package on the floor, looked up, and suddenly said, What were you most afraid of before? Well? She answered immediately, without even thinking, that we would never have another conversation that would change anything. He stood there listening. Then he said quietly, And now? There is a conversation now, she said, but I don't know if it changes us. They sat on the floor, because the sofa was covered in laundry. The cat lay between them like a silk pillow. They took turns stroking it. They were silent. And this silence wasn't like before. It had room to breathe. After the third session, the psychologist suggested that they meet in the office alone. They came. They sat across from each other. The psychologist said, No stories today. Just, I feel, I want, I'm ready, I'm not ready. He began. I feel anger and fear. I want a chance. I'm ready to work. I'm not ready to pretend that nothing happened. She said, I feel guilty and need the truth. I want not to lie and not to hear lies. I'm ready to be honest even when it destroys. I'm not ready to promise that I can return what was. The psychologist nodded. That's something, she said. Continue. They continued. Once a week. And between these meetings, work, sister, nephew, cat, shop, sleet, traffic jams, sparking sockets, tea without sugar, and from time to time, a message from him, from work. Are you alive? Yes. Me too. And silence. One evening he, the lover, wrote longer. I don't want to be the person who destroys other people's families. I don't want to be like that. But you were alive. I don't know what to do with it. She read and felt two voices arguing inside her. Tell me honestly that you won't be with him. And you don't know what will happen tomorrow. She wrote, I'm not promising anything, and I'm not asking you to wait. He replied, I'm already waiting. She hung up the phone and stared at the ceiling for a long time. At the end of the month, she and her husband met again in the yard. It was colder. He was holding gloves in his hands, but he wasn't wearing them. Do you want to go home? He asked. She looked at the entrance, at their window, at the balcony with the swinging dryer, at the bench where they had once laughed, at the bush under which they had hidden from the rain in the summer. I want to go back to myself, she said. And where I is, I'm not sure. He nodded. There was less anger in his eyes, more fatigue, more clarity. I'll leave you the keys, he said. Not as an invitation. As an opportunity. If you come, call. If you don't come, call too. I don't want to wait in the hallway, not knowing. Okay, she said. She walked slowly. She reached the bus stop. She sat down on a cold bench, took out her phone. She opened a chat with him, from work. She wrote, "I need more time than I thought." She pressed send. She closed the chat. She opened a chat with her husband. She wrote, "Thanks for the keys. I'll tell you." She sent it too. The days dragged on. She began to walk more. She listened to the city. In the park, someone was learning to play the trumpet, fakely, but diligently. At the bus stop, her grandmother was selling apples from the garden, sour, hard. She bought two and kept them in her pocket like a talisman. At work, she learned not to look at him. He also kept his distance. The distance sometimes hurts like a tooth, but you get used to it. One day, a man sent a photo of a cat that had climbed into her closet and fallen asleep on her hats. "She's bored," he wrote. She replied, "Me too." Then she added, "After her." And a minute later, "And after myself the way I was when we could talk." He wrote, "We can learn again." She said, "We can try." They met in neutral territory, a small, quiet corner cafe. They ordered tea. They sat, cups in hand, fingers around the warmth. They talked about little things. Work, the news, their nephew, the neighbor's cat that walks down the driveway without a collar. Then, about more important things. "Did you break up with him?" he asked bluntly. She didn't look away. "Yes," she said. "I told you I didn't know who I was or what I wanted, and that I didn't want to continue something that was on the run." "Does he understand?" "He said he would wait," she exhaled. "I didn't ask, but he's an adult." "Do you want him to wait?" the man asked. She stared into her tea for a long time at the floating pattern of linden blossoms. "I want no one to wait for anyone, like in a queue for happiness," she said. "I want everyone to go. If we get together, fine. If not, too. That sounds harsh. But I don't want a life of pauses anymore." He nodded. He was the one who always understood structure. But now he understood something else too. Movement. "Then let's go without pauses," he said. "We can meet twice a week. Walk, talk, sometimes be silent. No obligations, no plan for when you come back. And we'll see if we're actually people who want to be together, and not people who are just used to it." "Agreed," she said. They went out. Once on Tuesday, once on Saturday. The city was changing color. The leaves were becoming brittle and flying underfoot. They talked about books they hadn't finished reading, about how he had been afraid of a fictional shark in the bathroom as a child, about how she skipped gym class at school because she hid in the library. They laughed. Sometimes. Sometimes they were silent. But there were fewer stones in this silence. Meanwhile, work flowed as usual. He, the one, the other, kept his distance. But one day he came over after a meeting. "Have you lost weight?" he said. "Aren't you cold?" "It's normal," she replied. "I walk a lot." "Are you happy?" he asked unexpectedly. She shrugged. "I'm alive," she said, "and that's a lot." He nodded. There was no demand in his eyes. There was an understanding that not everything can be taken by force, even a gentle one. In the evening, she stood in the shower for a long time. The water hit her shoulders, as if it were blowing off dust. She went out, wrapped herself in a towel, and went to the mirror. She looked. Her face was her own. No younger or prettier than yesterday, but clearer, as if the focus had finally been adjusted. She went to bed in her sister's room. The phone was next to her. On the screen were two chats at the top. One was he, husband. The other was he, work. She didn't open either one. For the first time in a long time, she fell asleep quickly. The next day, her husband wrote, The lights in the park were turned on earlier today. Shall we go in the evening? She, yes. They left. They walked along the alleys where the leaves were crunching. He told a story about his colleague who accidentally sent a client an emoticon with a cat instead of a file. She laughed until she cried. Then they sat down on a bench. He took out a thermos of tea. She took a big sip and burned her tongue. They laughed again. I don't know how this will end, he said, but I like that we don't lie. Me too, she said, and that we're not in a hurry to put the stamp. Everything was as it was, because as it was is what brought us here. He took her hand, not as a possession, as a question. She squeezed it in response, not as a promise, as an answer to the question, "Are you here? Here?" A few days later, she came home to her apartment. The keys in her pocket were warm. She opened the door. The cat ran out to meet her and meowed loudly. The apartment was clean. On the table was a note from her husband. I replaced the light bulb in the kitchen. I checked the stove. It's blowing a little. I called the repairman for Thursday. If you're coming, tell me, I'll come too. If not, I'll come myself. She smiled. The smile was quiet. She put the kettle on. She opened the window. The autumn air rushed in and made the kitchen different. She sat down and, for the first time in a long time, allowed herself not to think about scenarios, just to sit. The cat settled on her lap. Her phone vibrated. A message from him, from work. I'm fine. Thanks for telling the truth. I'm not mad. Take care of yourself. She typed a reply, erased it, typed another. You too. Sent it. Then a message came from her husband. Master tomorrow at 2 p.m. Will you be there? She looked at her calendar. I will be there, she wrote. Okay, he replied. The next day, they met the master together. They stood in the kitchen, hands in their pockets, and listened to him grumbling about the draft, the tiles, and the pipes. They signed the papers. The master left. They were left alone. He washed his hands, turned, and leaned his back against the table. Do you want to stay for dinner? He asked. Yes, she said. I want to. They peeled potatoes together, cut onions, and put the pot on. Their movements sometimes touched, elbows, shoulders. She didn't move away. He didn't either. They didn't say much. When the soup was boiling, they sat down opposite each other. They ate slowly. At some point, he looked up. I want us to live separately for a little longer. Not because I'm pushing you away, but because I don't want to come out of fear. Do you understand? She nodded. I understand, she said. And so did I. She left around 11. It was dark on the stairs. She held the keys in her hand so as not to ring the bell. Down in the hallway was an old stroller without wheels. She touched it with her palm, as if checking reality. She went outside. The cold immediately embraced her, like a blanket that was too big. She was walking home to her sister and thinking, I cheated. It's a fact. I told the truth. It's a fact. He didn't promise forgiveness. I didn't ask. We don't know what will happen. We're taking small steps. Is that funny? No, it's honest. She went into her sister's hallway. She went up the stairs. The light was on in the kitchen. Her sister was peeling tangerines. How? Her sister asked. We're living, she said. Little by little. Her sister nodded. She held out a tangerine. She took a slice, tasted the sweet and sour juice on her tongue, and suddenly cried. Quietly, without a sound. Her sister didn't say anything. She just put her hand on her shoulder. At night she woke up to a message. It wasn't him or anyone else. It was her mother. How are you? It's been a long time since I wrote. Come over for the weekend. I baked some pies. She smiled through her tears. She wrote, We'll come, definitely. In the morning, she woke up without any anxiety. She made coffee. She opened the window. Pigeons were chirping outside the window. There were 2 notes on the table from yesterday. To SPM Master and pelmeni in the freezer from her sister. She took a pen and wrote to herself on the back, Today, work, walk, don't lie. She smiled to herself. A ridiculous plan, but her own. At work, she put a small plant on her desk for the first time in a month. She watered it. She moved the folders. She opened the to-do list. An hour later, he, the one from work, came in with the documents. He put them on the table. They met each other's eyes. You're different, he said. Calmer. I'm studying, she said. It doesn't guarantee anything, but it's better for me. I'm happy for you, he said it sincerely. Let me know if you need anything, papers or coffee. Coffee, sometimes, she said. Papers, always. They exchanged barely perceptible smiles. He left. She exhaled. In the evening, her husband wrote, Mom's having pies on Saturday at 12. Are you going? She, yes. He, okay. I'll pick you up from your sister's at 10:30. She, okay. Simple correspondence. And there was something alive in it. Saturday, the road to Mom. A radio from the 90s was playing in the car. They sang a verse they knew out loud. They laughed when they forgot the words. Mom met them in an apron. She talked a lot, as always. About her neighbor Galia, about the price of buckwheat, about chickens that don't lay eggs. They sat in the kitchen, eating hot pies, burning their fingers. Mom watched them closely, but didn't ask anything. Maybe she knew. Moms often know without saying a word. They drove home in silence, but it was a good silence. At the traffic light, he said, You smell of dough and soap, like before. She laughed. You smell of gasoline and cinnamon, she said. Like always. He smiled. They drove up to my sister's house. He stopped the car. I don't know if we'll be together, he said, but I know that I want to live in a way that I'm not ashamed to look myself in the eye. And you in the eye, and in the cat's eyes, too. I agree, she said. The cat is a strict judge here. They smiled again. She took the door handle. She stopped. Thank you for not shouting, she said. Not everyone could do it. I shouted, he said, but inside. Now I want it different. Me too, she said. She got out of the car. The air was clear. She stood by the entrance and watched the car drive away. Then she turned and went into the house. On the stairs, she met her neighbor from the 3rd floor. He was carrying a baby stroller. She opened the door for him. He said, Thank you. She said, Please. In the apartment, her sister was peeling potatoes. An old TV series was on where everyone spoke quickly. She took off her coat, washed her hands, and helped clean. So what? Her sister asked. It's fine, she said. We live. And I like that word. She went into the room and sat on the bed. She took a notebook. She wrote, I don't know how this will end. I know how I want to live, honestly, and without pauses. She put a period. She thought. She added, If we get together, fine. If not, I'll still be myself. She smiled. She closed the notebook. The phone blinked. A message from her husband. The cat fell asleep in your hats again. She's clearly voting for something. She. Cunning. He. Very. She. Good night. He. Good night. She turned off the light. She lay down. She stared into the darkness for a long time. Somewhere above the ceiling, trumpets were humming softly. She thought about the morning, about tea, about work, about the bridge, about the 2 cups in the cupboard waiting for their coffee. about the fact that life doesn't give guarantees, but it gives days, one after another. And in each day you can't lie, and that's a change. She fell asleep. A week later, they met again in the park. The snow lay in a thin film like a tablecloth. They walked slowly. He said, "I found some old letters, yours. We were stupid and brave back then. Do you want to look?" "I want to," she said. "But not today. Let's go sometime, when it's warmer, or when it's really cold and we want something warm." "Agreed," he said. They walked on. On a bench, two teenagers were drinking cocoa from a thermos and laughing. On another bench, a man in a knitted hat was reading a newspaper. A dog in a sweater was running in circles, happy with himself and the world. "I don't know if this is the moment when people kiss in the movies," he said, and smiled. "This isn't a movie," she said, "and I don't want to rush." "Me either," he said. They held hands, simply, without further ado. And they walked away. She felt something in her chest begin to hurt less. It didn't go away. It just became easier to bear. She knew that tomorrow might be different, that it might be hard again, that someone else would write, "Are you here?" And she would want to answer, "Yes." That her mother would ask unnecessary questions, that the cat would scratch the sofa, that the psychologist would say something that would make her feel uncomfortable, that the subway doors would get stuck again, that the tea would run out, that the snow would fall, and then it would rain. She knew that there were no guarantees, but now it was just like that. 2 hands, the cold, footsteps, and breathing. And silence that wasn't scary. And that was enough for today. They reached the exit from the park. They stopped. "Are you going to see your sister?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "Today, yes." "Okay," he nodded. "Right when you get there." "I will," she said. She let go of his hand. He let go of hers too. They went their separate ways. She walked and thought, "We didn't put a period. We didn't put 3 periods. We left a line, and it's mine. I can keep writing." She took out her phone. She typed to her husband, "I've arrived. Everything's okay." She sent it. Her fingers opened another chat by themselves. She watched for a few seconds and closed it, without a word. She raised her head. The snow was falling quietly. The flashlight was turning it into golden dust. She inhaled. For the first time in a long time, her lungs were full. There was no final. There was a road, and she was walking along it. The night was calm. She fell asleep quickly, but woke up at 5. Her heart was beating louder than it should. In her head was one thought: don't break down today. She got up, made tea, and quietly sat on the windowsill. It was still dark in the yard. Only one window was lit. Someone was awake too. She smiled, a little, to herself. In the morning, work. The air in the office was dry, as always in winter. She came in, said hello, and spread out the papers. There was a line by the coffee machine. He, the one from work, had his back to it. He turned around, nodded. He didn't say anything. She was also silent. Her phone vibrated. A message from her husband. "Good morning. Take a scarf? The wind is strong." She wrote, "Okay, thank you." Simple and straightforward. And she felt how it got warmer inside. At the planning meeting, the director made a remark. The department had missed deadlines for one of its clients again. She gathered the team. She explained what and how. Her voice didn't tremble. She had long known how to work under pressure. After the meeting, he, the one from work, stayed. "I want to be direct," he began. "I'm not writing because I don't want to. I'm not writing because you asked for space." "Thank you," she said. That's important. If you ever want coffee and a conversation, just say so, he added. No hints. Okay, she replied. If I want to, I'll say so. He nodded and left. She stood for a second, looking at the door. Then she returned to the computer. Things won't take care of themselves. In the evening, another meeting with the psychologist, a small office, a warm blanket, a cactus on the window. She told me about the park, about tea in a thermos, about tangerines at her sister's, and about the silence, which had become less acute. I'm afraid of two things, she said. Going back to the way it was, and losing him completely. That's a normal fear, the psychologist replied. You have two values that pull in different directions, security and truth. It is important not to confuse safety with habit and truth with pain for the sake of pain. Your task is to learn to live on the road, not in extremes. I don't want to make excuses, she said quietly. But I don't want to be bad forever either. You are not bad or good, the psychologist shrugged. You are a person who has made a choice. Now you are making another one. The question is, who you become because of these choices. She was silent. For the first time, these words fell flat inside. On Sunday, they went to his mother's, not hers, but his. She hesitated for a long time, but he wrote, Mom knows that it is difficult for us. She won't pressure you. His mother's kitchen smelled of borscht and baked apples. Mom put a little more on a plate and take it with you. She didn't ask anything, only sometimes did she look closely, like a doctor. In parting words, she said, Fatigue is cured by rest and distrust by time and actions. Speak, not by shouting. They were silent in the car for almost the entire way back. At her entrance, he turned off the engine. Thank you for coming, he said. Thank you for calling, she replied. I don't know how to do it right, he said. I start from scratch every day, and it's scary. I'm scared too, she said. But it seems like this is the first time that this is a normal fear. He nodded. She got out of the car. She watched for a long time as the headlights fogged up behind her. Then she went into the dark entrance. Rumors started at work. 2 colleagues whispered near the kitchen and glanced at her. She pretended not to notice. At lunch, her boss organized a team building for the weekend. Archery, pumpkin soup, team trust. She wrote back, I'll be there for half a day. He, the one from work, didn't reply in the general chat, in the private one either. And that was right. It was slippery and cold at the team building. She was shooting badly. She laughed when the arrow fell almost at her feet. An intern stood nearby and pretended to know how to hold the bow better. Breathe, he said. Exhale before you shoot. She exhaled. She fired. She hit the blue circle, not in the center, but not in the grass either. Oh, she said, I like to exhale. It's actually useful, the intern smiled. At the end of the day, they drank tea from thermoses and ate cookies. He, the one from work, came over and simply handed her a warm mug. My hands are freezing, he said. Thank you, she said. Frozen. He stood nearby, but not close. He looked somewhere in the distance at the trees. He said, I respect your choice, even if it wasn't me. Thank you, she replied by inertia in Russian, like she had once done in childhood at the market, and smiled. Sorry, thank you. He smiled too. It's okay. They broke up, without promises and without reservations. An old pipe in the bathroom burst in my sister's apartment. The water was turned off for the day. She went to hers to wash and do laundry. She opened the door and immediately felt that their house was still a home. The smell of powder, cat food in the bowl, her cup in place, a candle on the windowsill. She turned on the washing machine, stood in the shower. She let the water hit her shoulders for a long time. Then she dried herself off, made some tea. The doorbell rang. He came in. I brought a shower head, the metal one, and then, I'll throw away the magazines. They went into the kitchen. They sat down. They were silent. I found our old note, he said. 2017. Buy bread, a little happiness, and 2 movie tickets. You wrote it. I laughed then, and now, for some reason, there's a lump in my throat. She took the note. It turned yellow with a coffee stain. Back then, I wanted us to always have a little happiness, she said. In small portions, so as not to overeat. We stopped buying even small portions at some point, he said. Yes, she answered. He looked at her. I'm not asking you to answer now, but I'm proposing a rule. 1. An inconvenient one. Once a week, we tell only the truth for 30 minutes, even if it's stupid or ugly. No insults, no excuses, just the truth as it is. Okay, she said. Once a week, 30 minutes. Timer, you or me? Me, he said, because I love timers. She smiled for the first time that evening. I know. They set a timer and started. He. I'm afraid that if we get together, you'll leave again. She. I'm afraid that if we don't get together, I'll break down and run to that place because it's easier to breathe there. He. I get angry when I see your name in his correspondence on the work files. She. I feel sick to my stomach when I hear that. He. It hurts, but I want to try. She. I'm ashamed, but I want to try too. 30 minutes passed quickly. They didn't hug or kiss. They got up, washed their cups. He left. She was left with the timer, which was now silently showing zeros. She put it in a drawer with a note saying, bread and happiness. The next week, a big tender was awarded in the office. There was more work. She would come back late, tired, but more sober. He, the one from work, helped with the spreadsheets. They stood side by side in front of the monitor, sharing files. His hand accidentally touched her sleeve. She took a step back and said simply, No need. Sorry, he replied quietly. I forgot. I forgot, she said. Let's not. He nodded. Let's not. After submitting the tender, they all went to the bar. She took tea. The colleagues were joking. The music was loudly beating in her ribs. He sat down at the other end of the table. They met eyes only once, briefly, without hidden meanings. She said goodbye earlier, went out into the cold. She was breathing heavily, like a diesel locomotive. She wrote to her husband, I'm going home to my sister. Everything's okay. He replied, Okay. Take care of yourself. She smiled. Her okay stopped meaning, let's talk later. Now it was simply okay. 2 weeks later, she and her husband went to the movies. An old movie in a small theater, cheap chairs, the smell of popcorn from her childhood. She laughed in the right places and cried in 2 scenes for no reason. He handed her a paper napkin. After the movie, they went out and stood by the door. Coffee? He asked. Yes, she said. They were sitting in a small cafe. It was cloudy outside. It was quiet inside. He said, I look at us and I understand. We are new. No better, no worse, just different. That's right, she said. And it scares me less than it used to. He looked straight at her. I'm ready to offer another rule, in addition to the 30 minutes of truth. If one of us feels like running away again, it doesn't matter where, to work, to others, to the phone. We write to the other about it that very day. Not in a week, not when it's too late. She nodded slowly. We've agreed, she said. And also, he added, we'll live separately for another month. Then we decide whether to get together or not. Not because it's necessary, but because it's so honest. Yes, she said. A month. Spring has crept up, as always. First a drizzle, then puddles, then the first people without hats. She started running around the pond in the morning. Not for the sake of fitness. To clear her head. There were 3 songs in the playlist, and that was enough. She returns home to her sister, drinks water, writes 3 sentences in a notebook. What I feel. What I'm afraid of. What I'll do today. Small and honest. It was calmer at work. She and he, from work, learned to be just colleagues. Sometimes the 3 of them had coffee with the designer. Conversations about files, deadlines, discounted jackets. Nothing personal. It's easier to breathe. With my husband, 30 minutes of truth every week. Sometimes hard, like stretching stiff muscles. Sometimes suddenly easy. They laughed at little things. They argued honestly. And they stopped when someone said stop. One day she said stop. They were sitting in the kitchen. He was talking about the future. If we get together, if we go in the summer, if... She felt embarrassed by all the ifs. She put her hand on the table. Stop, she said. I have a hard time listening to ifs right now. I need todays. For example, today we're going to the park, or today I'm taking the cat to the vet. Can we? He fell silent. He thought. Can we, he said. Today is the park. Tomorrow is the vet. She exhaled. For the first time, she felt that she was being heard, not just by words, but by a state of mind. Early April. She went into their shared apartment to water the flowers. On the table was an envelope. On it was his handwriting. For both of us. Inside was a copy of the agreement on shared expenses for the apartment for 3 months in advance. And another little letter. This is not control. This is peace. So that we don't fight about money while we learn to talk about important things. She smiled, scanned it, signed it from her side. At the bottom she added, Thank you. I'm taking the utility bills for the next month. She put it back. She put bread and happiness in the drawer. The phone vibrated. He, from work. Can I ask you to look at a model? There's an important nuance there you can see better. She. Yes, leave it. He. It's not personal. She. I know. They worked for 20 minutes. He wrote, Thank you. It turned out well. She. Yes. And that was it. In the evening, the husband wrote, Is it a park today? She. Yes. They walked along the alleys, their hands in their pockets. The children were racing scooters. The dogs were getting tangled up in their leashes. They were talking about little things. At the exit from the park, he stopped. I'll ask you directly, he said. Have you thought about going home now? She looked at his face, at his tired eyes, which had become brighter. I thought, she said, and I was scared, because coming back is easy. Leaving again is harder. I want to understand if it's not habit and fear that draws us to each other. So, not yet. He nodded. He sighed. It hurts, he said. But honestly, it's acceptable. She ran her finger along his sleeve. I'm here, she said. I'm just not moving today. They're different things. I agree, he said. April turned into May. The city got warmer. She bought herself new sneakers. White, which gets dirty quickly. She wanted white ones. She and her husband went to the market to buy herbs for the balcony. They bought basil and mint seedlings. She laughed. Mint again? I don't like it. Suddenly you'll love it, he said. Suddenly, she confirmed. They planted pots on the balcony. The earth smelled of spring. She smeared her fingers, wiped them on her jeans. He brought an old bucket, laughed when water spilled on her sneakers. They stood side by side, looking at the two tiny beds. She suddenly felt very sad and very good at the same time. I don't know, she said, if we'll be together. But this is good. It's alive, he replied. They fell silent. The cat went out onto the balcony, sniffed the basil, sneezed, and walked back. The first joint breakdown happened, as often happens, for no real reason. She came back late, tired, and hungry. She wrote to her husband, I can't talk today. Tired. For some reason, he didn't read it right away. He was at the gym. She went into a chat with someone else. She wrote, How are you? Her fingers stopped at send. Her heart was pounding. She put down her phone and went out onto the balcony. She stood in the cold for 5 minutes. She came back, opened a chat with her husband. I'm on the edge right now. I want to run away. I'm telling you the truth. A minute later, the answer came. I'll get in touch in 20 minutes when I get home. You're a good guy for saying that. Drink some water. I want to run away sometimes too. She drank some water. She sat down on the floor. She cried, quietly, but without shame to herself. When he called, they were just silent on the phone. Breathing. 5 minutes. 10. It got easier. The next day, she wrote to the psychologist. It was difficult. I made it. The psychologist replied, You're learning. This is change. The end of May. They had to decide whether to move in or not. She came to their kitchen early, made tea. He came in, took off his jacket, hung it up straight. I was thinking, he began, if we move in, would it be fair? Or should we rush? I was thinking too, she said. I want it, and I'm afraid. I could say yes today, and wake up tomorrow and feel like I rushed it. I'm afraid of hurting you again. He nodded. I don't want one right step, he said. I want a series of small right steps. My suggestion is this. We leave it as it is for another 2 months, with specific dates when we meet, with our truth timer, with money that we share equally, and with the fact that on weekends we sometimes spend the night together, when we are both comfortable, without the obligation of always and never. She took a breath. Yes, she said. It suits me. And also, he added, if you feel like you want to be with him, you will tell me right away. I want to know sooner, not later. I will tell you, she said. And you too, if, well, you understand. I understand, he said. They raised their glasses and clinked their glasses. It was funny, but it looked like an agreement between adults who had finally become adults. June. Hot. They went to the river. They sat on the grass, eating cherries from a plastic container. She spat the stones far away. He spat them close, because he was afraid of hitting someone. They laughed. Then they lay and looked at the sky. She wanted to take his hand, and took it. He clenched his fist in response. He said nothing. His fingers lay calmly next to each other. They were fine. In the evening, she returned to her sister. Her sister said, Are you going back to him? I'm going back to myself, she answered. And you'll see there. I'm happy for you, said her sister. Not because with him, but because you stopped drowning. I'm happy too, she said. She went out onto the balcony, looked at the city. Warm windows, the smell of linden, distant voices. The phone vibrated. A message from him, from work, Thanks for the edits to the layout. Have a nice evening. She answered, You too? And she put the phone down. The next message was from her husband. The cat ruined the basil. I laughed for 5 minutes. You should too. She. There will be a new basil. He. We'll buy it tomorrow. She. Okay. She sat on the floor, leaning her back against the wall. She stared at the empty frame above for a long time. It had never been painted. She thought, you can live without knowing the ending. You can love without having guarantees. You can honestly say, it hurts, and not break everything. You can learn, even if it's too late. She got up, went to the table, opened a notebook, and wrote 3 lines. Today, I chose the truth. Tomorrow, I'll choose it too. As for us, we'll see what kind we are. She closed the notebook. She exhaled. She smiled. The sky was getting dark, but it was calm. The ending hadn't come, and it didn't have to. It was a road. She kept walking along it. She woke up early. Outside the window was rain. On the table was a note with her 3 lines from yesterday. Today is the truth. She took the keys and went to their apartment. In the hallway, the cat rubbed against her legs and led her to the kitchen. On the windowsill were basil and mint. The mint survived. She poured water, watered it carefully. She took out a yellowed note from the drawer. Bread, a little happiness, and 2 movie tickets. She put it next to her. Her phone vibrated. A message from him, from work. I've been transferred to another department. We won't be crossing paths on projects anymore. I wanted to say thank you. Take care of yourself. She stared at the screen for a long time. She wrote, Thank you for your honesty. Don't wait for me. Be yourself. She pressed, Send. She exhaled. It became quiet. An hour later, a man rang the doorbell. In his hands was bread and a thermos. He came in, put the bread on the table. He looked at the note from 2017. He smiled wryly. I bought it, he said, and nodded at the bread. I don't know about a little happiness, but I can make soup. Cook, she said. I'll set a timer. She set 30 minutes of truth on her phone. They sat down. No introductions. I'm still angry, he said. And I still love. I'm still ashamed, she said. And I want to live honestly, even if it hurts. I'm afraid we'll break when the going gets tough. He looked straight at her. I'm afraid of betraying myself again. She didn't lower her eyes. And you too. The timer ticked. They spoke briefly, directly, without fancy words. At the end, he asked, Are you coming back today? She looked at the barely simmering pot, at the cat, at the mint. I can stay the night, she said. Not like forever. Like today. And tomorrow we'll tell the truth again. He nodded. Agreed. They ate a simple soup. They washed the dishes. They made the bed. She lay down on the edge, leaving a space. The cat settled between them like a living boarder. The light in the bedroom was left half on, a small lamp with a yellow shade. I don't know the ending, he said in the semi-darkness. Me either, she said. But I'm here today. It's not a promise. It's a fact. They fell silent. The rain was pounding steadily on the windowsill. Somewhere in the neighbor's house, a door slammed softly. She reached out and touched the edge of the sheet between them without crossing the line. He did too. Their fingers didn't meet, but they lay close together. Before falling asleep, she got up, went to the kitchen, and put her keys to her sister's apartment in her bag, and left the key to this house on the hook by the door. Not as a sign of forever, as a sign of I'm not running away tonight. She returned to the bedroom and turned off the lamp. In the darkness, she could hear their breathing and a light purring. She thought, I've made a choice, a small one, for today. Tomorrow would be 30 minutes of truth again. There would be questions, fear, work, Basil, the cat again. There would be messages and pauses. There would be a path. The finale had not been announced. Just a window, rain, and 2 people learning not to lie to themselves. That was enough for tonight. The morning began quietly. She woke up before him. The cat slept, curled up at her feet, breathing evenly. The sun was filtering through the curtains in narrow strips across the floor. She lay there listening to the house breathe. Not the old one, not the new one, just the house. There was still bread on the table and a note saying, "A little happiness." She went over and stroked the paper with her fingers. She smiled, not bitterly, not cheerfully, just genuinely. She made coffee and placed 2 cups, one across from his place. Then she opened the window. The rain had stopped, the air smelled of earth. He came into the kitchen barefoot, sleepy. "Good morning," he said quietly. "Good morning," she replied. They sat in silence drinking coffee, without promises, without fear, just together, this morning. And that was enough. She knew there would be more conversations, doubts, pauses ahead, but now, without lies. And perhaps this is where not the end begins, but life goes on. The finale is open. She stayed, not because she forgave, but because she decided not to run away. And he, not because he forgot, but because he wanted to understand.